Support for this episode comes from Signature Bank.
Hey, this is Gary Head, founder and chairman at Signature Bank of Arkansas. 21 years ago, we set out to build a community bank that knows your name, values relationships, and treats people how they deserve. That's still how we do things today. Whether you're buying a home, growing a business, planning for what's next with Signature Private Wealth Management, or need bilingual banking through Banco C, our team is here to help with local decisions and real relationships you can count on. Call 479-684-3700 or visit signature.bank and tell us you heard about us on I Am Northwest Arkansas.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
You know, one of my favorite things about doing this podcast for nearly 7 years is getting to watch people build, not just their businesses, but themselves. And every once in a while, a guest comes back around and the conversation just hits different because of everything that's happened in between. Jasmine Hudson is one of those guests. She's the co-founder of Black Paper Party, a celebration brand creating culturally inspired party decor and paper goods centered on Black joy and representation. I had Jasmine on the show back in the early days of I Am Northwest Arkansas, and then again in late 2023 after Black Paper Party made their appearance on Shark Tank Season 15 and struck a deal with Barbara Corcoran. That episode was a good one. Now she's back, and this time there's another milestone to talk about. Black Paper Party is part of the Endeavor Heartland Spring 2026 Scale Up Accelerator Cohort, a regional program backed by the Arkansas Economic Development Commission that helps high-growth companies navigate their next stage of growth. 9 companies were selected, and Black Paper Party is one of them. I've been wanting to dig into what Endeavor Heartland is doing in this region for a while, and there's no better way to do that than through the lens of a founder I've known since the beginning. Jasmine, welcome back to I Am Northwest Arkansas.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. You have been there since day one. You have been there since day one.
Yes. I appreciate that. And certainly you and Jerron and the rest of the amazing folks at Black-owned NWA were gracious enough to me and welcoming me here to Northwest Arkansas. So I appreciate you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, I want to kind of get into this because we've talked a number of times now, once early on and then after Shark Tank. When you look back at those conversations, and it's been a minute now because you guys were on in the first season of I Am Northwest Arkansas back in 2019, 2020.
Oh, yeah.
So this is 2026. So,
right.
So time has gone on.
Yeah.
So when you look back at those conversations compared to where you are today, what's the biggest thing that's changed about how you think about building Black Paper Party?
Oh, my gosh. So there's so much that has changed in terms of growth. Well, when you met us at that time, it was very much just a startup, and it was very much really in an ideation phase. So we started out with print on demand services and then slowly started building out our website. But since then, we've scaled to over 20,000 points of distribution across 7 different retailers. So what growth looked like then was fulfilling orders out of our garage and creating this crazy network of Excel spreadsheets to try to track everything and staying up at all hours of the night after really working our 9-to-5 jobs at Walmart when we were trying to build it. Now we are full-time in the business. We are, we haven't really hired, but we have a ton of 1099 contract workers. And we're looking at true growth scale, capital investments as opposed to surviving. We even have a 3PL now. So we're not pickpacking and fulfilling out of my garage. So growth then, growth now. There's still growing pains, a lot of things to learn. And what do I say? New levels, new devils.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, no, and I appreciate that. And when you guys started Black Paper Party, it was 3 founders.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And then so I think with the advent of technology, it allows you guys to be in different places and still do what you need to do.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one thing that really stood out to me, and I know my wife was super excited when you guys first came out with the wrapping paper and all of that different stuff, because representation matters. But Black Paper Party has always been about more than product. It seems like you guys have always focused on cultural representation and what that means for a family to see themselves reflected in a celebration.
Yep.
Has that mission gotten easier or harder to hold on to as the brand has grown and you're dealing with major retailers and investors?
I wouldn't say easier or harder. It's just in our DNA and who we are. Black Paper Party doesn't exist if it's not for the authentic representation of the Black diaspora in our products. So things are changing, especially in the retail landscape, where there's, DEI rollbacks and certain things are happening from that perspective. However, the mission stays the mission, and our customer appreciates that. She still wants authentic representation of her culture in the products that she purchases. So long as that is her desire, that is what the need is that we're going to meet. So, for instance, yes, we did lose our target account, However, one of the things that we saw, which was amazing from this past holiday season, is that she was just like, you know what? I'm trying to shop directly with you anyway. And we were, setting records with our e-commerce business. So that's where we know that our growth is going to come from, as our customer is looking for ways to, one, directly support businesses and not necessarily by way of mass retail. And then also still looking for those solutions, even if she's not able to get it in the stores that she frequents every day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you use the word she, and I'm assuming that you, in your mind, you have an avatar or that prototypical client. I'm curious to know for Black Paper Party, how many prototypical customers do you have? Or are you really focused on the one?
I mean, I would say we have 2 distinct customers, but they're cousins.
Okay.
They're cousins for sure. So from just a demo breakdown, I would say about 80% of our customers are millennial plus Black women.
Okay.
That are in very metropolitan areas. So she's in the DCs, the Houstons, the Chicagos, and she's very culture forward. Actually, the remaining 20 or so percent is a Caucasian woman with a multicultural friend group or a multicultural family. Now, when we take that 80% though, and we break her down, we have one side, we call her the rich auntie vibes, right? So she's the one who she buys like the Williams-Sonoma. She's very like a beautifully decorated home and, loves to, we say she catches flights, not feelings. So she'll come in town, give either her grandbabies or her nieces and nephews all of the sugar and goodies, and then she'll finish out her holiday in the south of France. That's one. And then the other, she is the savvy shopper. She loves a good deal, but she loves a really great representation of herself. So she wants a beautiful tote with a girl with an afro on it, right? So she loves to walk around and showing just kind of her pride from that perspective, but she loves a really great deal. So that's why Black Paper Party, we're one of the very, very few brands, especially Black-owned brands. If you really think about it, try to name one. I'll wait while I'm talking. That actually sells into Dollar General and Family Dollar, all the way through the Walmarts, all the way to Macy's. It's the exact same brand, same core product, wrapping paper is sold in each of those tiers. Outside of like Disney, Nickelodeon, Bluey, who is really sold and not backed by a conglomerate, you know what I mean, that can actually reach each of those tiers?
That's a wide range
for sure
of retail outlets.
Absolutely.
Like ridiculously wide.
Yes.
Right? Like some some go into one and not the other,
right?
And vice versa.
Yeah, and I used to be a buyer at Walmart. One of the things that I ran into was a supplier would say, like, say I wanted to go after cookware that is in Macy's. That supplier wouldn't sell to me because they were nervous that if they sold to me, that they would lose their Macy's account.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a perception as though like Macy's doesn't want what they sell in the Dollar Generals, so how are we able, to convince the Macy's to carry that wrapping paper and Family Dollar to carry our wrapping paper?
Sure.
And then also have a presence in Walmart as well. Yeah. So it's been an interesting, wild ride. And I definitely can say that our retail backgrounds have helped. But that's one of the things that we're considering when we're thinking about the customer and meeting her needs where she is. And then now in this day and age with kind of things kind of changing around macroeconomically and socially, what does e-commerce look like for us now? Yeah.
And I think a lot of that also speaks to the value and the strength of and I'm using air quotes now, black dollar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know
over $1 trillion to spend.
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, when you do it, a lot of times you equate like the spending power of African Americans can be equated to, the certain size GDP of a country.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And certainly for my listeners that are not Black, it is an important subject that comes up a lot because sometimes, economically, we understand things economically in economic terms. Right. And so I think it's important to understand that. And so the reason why I think what Jasmine and her partners are doing is so important is because the market has been asking for this for a long time.
For sure.
And it just didn't exist, right? And I think for anyone listening, just the understanding that sometimes you just want certain things that look like you.
Yes, you do.
And it's not against anything else.
Yeah.
And you might have other stuff because I'm going to buy some wrapping paper from IKEA as well or from some other places. But I also like the little girl wrapping paper that we've gotten from.
It's both and. Yes, and.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's important for people to understand that. And just from a cultural standpoint, to understand that. It brings a level of cultural pride.
Absolutely.
And importance.
Right.
And also, again, just being seen.
100%.
And it's just, and that's why I think you guys have tapped into something, when they talk about a taproot, when a taproot taps into something, it unveils or reveals something of value.
Right.
And so I'm glad that you guys have taken the time to do this, to identify your prototypical customer. And it sounds like you have a really good handle. And I'm surprised to hear that the Caucasian female is also a big supporter of Black Paper Party.
She absolutely is. Yeah. She has a community of friends, people from her church, even her actual like family, nuclear family. She may be like kind of, what is it? I forgot what they call it, but like a multicultural like she has like multicultural kids.
Yeah, sure.
So extended family. So yes. And then some of them, honestly, just wants to support.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll never forget one of my really great friends, April. She brought Black Paper Party and she just gave it to everyone in the family. And frankly, her family is not multicultural. But everyone was unwrapping, Aunt Holly wrapping paper, our rich auntie vibes wrapping paper during the holidays, and they absolutely loved it.
Absolutely.
Right? So
absolutely.
It's bigger than just, I'm Black and I'm buying Black wrapping paper.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And I don't want that to be lost on the listeners because I think they need to understand that. So you mentioned earlier that you were a buyer for Walmart. You've been in the Walmart ecosystem for a while now.
Yes.
That's where you cut your teeth in retail.
For sure.
You actually said in our last conversation, and I'm going back in the annals of time now, that Walmart is probably one of the greatest incubators for businesses. Does that still hold true? And what has that relationship taught you about scaling a consumer brand in this region here and beyond?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it is true, but I'm not saying it's true in the sense of it's easy.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, and it's actually even more difficult now. Well, it'll always be like more difficult as times change, right? Yeah. But we are on the cusp of very seismic shifts that are happening, especially in the age of AI. And especially in the age of accelerated e-commerce.
Yeah.
So Walmart's really big focus, they gotta beat Amazon, right?
Absolutely.
So they have to get really good and savvy at e-commerce. What does that mean for a small business? You have to drop ship. They're not going to just cut a PO and put you on the side counter. And for some businesses, you really don't want that anyway. Trust me, like you don't want to scale that fast if you're not ready from an infrastructure perspective. So when I say it's a great incubator for businesses, Walmart is going where the customer is going. How I was just kind of describing our customer, they have an insane grasp on who their customer is.
Yeah.
So long as your customer is aligned to the Walmart customer, servicing Walmart and calling upon them as a retailer is a great incubator for your business. Now, you don't want to be over leveraged because if it doesn't work out, you can go bankrupt.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you need to be savvy. You need to be smart, but they will keep you on your toes in terms of how to service the customer, where she shops, how she shops, and they're going to hold you accountable in terms of leveraging technology, specifically AI, to move faster and grow faster.
And when you think about it, AI wasn't at the forefront of your mind when you first started Black Paper Party.
Not even remotely
Can you
close.
give me an example of how you now consider things given AI is a mainstay versus when you first started Black Paper Party?
Sure. Well, like you said, at the beginning, I mean, AI was not a thing that we even played around with at all at the beginning. But now, especially with just the limited amount of resources we have as a small business, we leverage AI to the nth degree, just from a bandwidth perspective. And then one of the things is we use it not to replace critical thinking, but to be a catalyst to just thinking faster and smarter and getting really in-depth research quickly and synthesizing insights quickly. So it enables us to move faster. So we use it as more of an enabler and not necessarily a replacement for anything. But with that being said, like we can throw in so much data and then it can spit back out a dashboard.
Right.
It can take our tone of voice that we've trained it on and build out the year's worth of email blasts. It can even, so like Perplexity can go into the back end of our Shopify and optimize each of our listings for SEO. And now we have AEO and GEO, which is all AI driven, engine search optimization. So if a customer is in ChatGPT saying, man, I wish there was African-American wrapping paper, we would come up. And there's ways to optimize for that. And Perplexity can do that. Claude has rewritten so many of our SOPs, right? And with Claude Cowork, it can go in. Oh my gosh. When I say it's a great admin help, it can go through, find all of my emails, everything that's a priority, and it'll give me my rundown for the whole week, right? So instead of starting from ground zero with absolutely everything like we did back in 2019, we're actually starting at, spot 100 and going forward. So that's why I really, really enjoy AI and what's been helping us kind of scale and grow.
So it sounds like it has helped to augment your growth.
For sure.
It hasn't replaced anything, if you will. Because I mean, and the other thing I want to mention, give a shout out to the amazing artists that you have. And Jerron and the work that she's done. And she's created so many different characters. That are mainstays in your wrapping paper and in some of your figurines and some of the other items that you sell that are part of your what's the cool
the Claus family.
The Claus family,
So Jaron is the creator of the Claus family. We have Papa and Nana Claus. We have a ton of personalities. Noelle, Stacy. We have Frankincense, but we call him Uncle Frank. We have the Claus babies, Grace, Faith. So we have the 3 wise women and angels and gnomes and nutcrackers.
My goodness.
So, but there's just a way that it's kind of illustrated and presented to the customer that you can tell it was created by hands that know you. Because otherwise, for instance, what we say, like our biggest competition, because a lot of the other small businesses that we came up with aren't really around anymore. Our biggest competition is private label retail, the Family Dollars that, and listen, they already know, we've had the conversation, so this is not confidential. They created a wrapping paper that looked exactly like our Skater Girls. And we were like, how could you do that? Because we're sitting right next to them on the shelf. Ours is $5, theirs is $1, and we cannibalize really each other in a lot of ways. So it wasn't optimal. And now we are the brand of choice and the, people of color of choice, I don't know, for that specific solution for their merchandising strategy going forward. But our main competition outside of like the Hallmarks and the American Greetings really is the retailers that think that they can just take a character, color drop brown on them, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. The customer sees right through it.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, it's kind of how Target embraced Tabitha Brown.
Sure. Yep.
And utilized her skill set and ability,
right,
and the way that she reached out into the Black community.
For sure.
And leveraged that for their retail purposes.
Yep.
So,
and even their Black History Month assortment, actually Madia, our CEO, she was one of the pioneers of the Black History Month collection launching initially at Target, because she was at Target before she came over to Walmart. And it's really how they will assign like an artist, and you'll see the tag and the profile of that artist. And all Target is just a conduit to it, you know, coming to the masses, as opposed to commandeering.
Sure.
Commandeering the culture and then putting it out as though you were able to develop it firsthand.
Yeah.
So it is important. The customer is looking for authenticity.
They really are. Trust me. And I think, you know, and I look at my wife as, I think my wife fills in, she's not a millennial, but she fills in that she profile for your, you know, prototypical buyer where, you know, she can tell certain things and it's like a spidey sense, right? Yeah. She's like, oh no, I know what's legit. Am I being
exploited or, you know, marketed to, sold to, or I think really value me?
I think that's really interesting. But now I also remember, and we talked about this in the last one, and I'd love for you just to quickly expound upon your experience with Shark Tank.
Sure.
One of the things, and it's not a secret, that you got a deal on Shark Tank with Barbara Corcoran, but that never materialized, which a lot of people don't realize. I think people think all those deals happen.
It's quite frequent.
And especially, I want to say it's like high, like 80-85% or more.
Yeah.
So it's really high. But what did that experience teach you?
Sure. Well, it was okay. Just like with really any startup business investor relationship, before you establish a partnership, you have to go through due diligence. You have to go through the numbers and make sure that everyone's on the same page, that this is really a viable investment. The numbers that we shared, let me back up a little bit. The way we even came about Shark Tank was they reached out to us.
Yeah.
And so we didn't audition. And it was, at first we thought it was spam. And then our PR agent was just like, you guys have got to respond.
Yeah.
So we responded. We did kind of our initial pitch and all of that. But at the time, Madia, our CEO, she was pregnant. And when they normally do the taping of the holiday episode, she would have been too pregnant to travel to LA to film. So they wanted us on the show so bad that they actually let us film in the summer.
Oh, wow.
So we went out to LA in the summer, and we gave our projections. We went out on that carpet. We gave out our projections for the year. All of those numbers were good, solid, and we had it backed by, you know, material POs that were going to come through. So once we got the deal, the lights, you know, go off and all of us go back to our respective locations, Barbara and her team commenced due diligence. So we're giving them all the information. Now she's very savvy and she says, you are a holiday business. So she dragged her feet to see how we would do during the holidays. That's smart. She's, you know what I mean? She's a smart lady. Well, we had a supplier that year that flat out, I'm not exaggerating, ghosted us.
Okay.
That supplier fell off the face of the earth. To this day, we can't get in contact with them. So they did not ship our CVS shipment at all, the order. They didn't ship Macy's at all. They shipped half of Walmart, and they shipped none of the inventory for our website. So we had a $250,000 windfall. I mean, and it was to the dollar. Yeah. So when she came back and said, so how'd you guys do? We're like, well, we missed projection by a long shot. Top line, bottom line, everything was wrecked, completely wrecked.
Yeah.
And essentially, she just changed the deal. She was just like, okay, instead of, $250 for 10, she kept the valuation, but it was just less. It was like $125 for 5, right?
Okay.
But we were just like, there's no point in giving up equity, especially with the terms and how she wanted to be paid out for $125,000. We can go get that in debt.
Yeah.
So we respectfully declined. And she said, hey, that's kind of what it would take for me to be a part of this. I totally understand you guys not wanting, to give up 5% for $125. So we just decided not to ink the deal. but she still has been a support.
Okay.
So she has like this crew of people. They send out tips and tricks on businesses and ways to optimize your social media and all of that. And then we give her, like twice a year kind of updates on how we're doing financially. And during our next, like our actual round, like a true round, we would love to bring her to the table. And she said she's willing to have that conversation.
So it's more of it's not a no, it's not right now.
Right.
Yeah,
or like
which
not
the door
in this
is
way.
open. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Sure.
And I'm curious to know, and I don't know if you know this, if all the sharks are like that, but I would imagine that they are all kind of a little different in terms of how they reach it.
I feel like each of them have their own style.
Yeah.
And I actually feel as though if we would have missed our projection, like, for instance, like Mr. Wonderful would have just been like, oh, forget it. You know, like not even of changing the structure of the deal. It just would have been done.
Yeah.
So I feel as though some of them just kind of have their own nuances. And I mean, of course, they're like the head of it, but they have their full team that runs the due diligence and all of that. So it's really based on their recommendation.
Sure.
So they all kind of have their own processes.
No, I understand that. Well, that perfectly takes me to this next question, which, when I think about why we're here today to have this conversation, and I've been aware of Kane and Mark and Sean over at Endeavor Heartland for a while.
Yeah.
Janem. I'm sorry. Yeah, I always say Kane. Yeah, it's Janem. Yeah.
It reads that way.
It does. It does. And I have butchered her name. Janem, I'm so sorry. But no, seriously, they've been doing some great work here quietly in Northwest Arkansas. And I would love for you to kind of walk us through getting into the Endeavor Heartland scale-up cohort.
Sure.
What made you say yes to this particular program? And what are you hoping to get out of it that you couldn't get somewhere else?
Sure. So I know you kind of talked about Endeavor, but to just kind of level set on what Scale Up is Endeavor's program for founders who've moved past kind of like that startup phase and are ready to grow into the next tier. It's a non-dilutive cohort that pairs you with world-class mentors, a peer community of fellow founders, and kind of like that tactical support around fundraising, operations, scaling, and scaling challenges. So for me and Black Paper Party, it's really a launch pad. So a way to plug into a trusted network of operators and investors as we push the company into the next phase of growth. So in terms of getting in, Sean, shout out to Sean. So he reached out. We've been really like close and talking about Endeavor for a while. Just quite frankly, our revenue just needs to be, higher to be in the true kind of Endeavor network, but being part of Scale Up. Super shout out to Sean. Sean reached out to be a part of the Scale Up program because we have been in business going on 6 years. So we're not necessarily in the super scrappy startup phase, but we are in the phase where we are quickly starting to look for, growth capital and all of that. So being a part of a cohort that's in the same kind of maturation phase has been great. We've been having just really great, almost mastermind level conversations with each other. And then the Scale Up program has also put us in front of really great mentors, industry mentors, especially living in Northwest Arkansas and being so close to Walmart. So kind of everyone is really affiliated in the retail space, which has been great from this cohort's perspective. And then in terms of what do I hope to gain that I couldn't get otherwise, it's really back to what I was saying. It's that network of support that Endeavor and Scale Up has been able to provide. So they're able to kind of knock down a lot of barriers in terms of access to people, access to capital, access to information that would have taken, I can't say I would have never gotten to it, but it's made it so much simpler and easier. So that's why, Scale Up has been really important to the development of Black Paper Party.
Do you think that more startup entrepreneurs that want to get into larger retail spaces could benefit from residing or being here as a home base for growth?
Yes, but it only works if you work it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you guys have been working it for a long time.
You can't just move here and think through osmosis that you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like that's not how it works. And just frankly, through the Scale Up program, it's only 2 of us out of the 9 that actually live here. The rest are realizing the value of like maybe wanting to move here because the 2 that I speak of, myself and, I forgot his name. I'm so sorry. but we have a really great network here.
Yeah.
So the ones that don't live here have to work really hard to establish and maintain their networks. Whereas I can go to Onyx up the street, you know what I mean? And, catch up. So there is value in being here, but it won't just happen. Your networks have to be cultivated.
Sure.
Relationships have to be, sought out. So if you get here, get ready to work, but it does make it a lot easier if you are here.
So for how long is the cohort?
It's 3 months.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then those that are out of town, they fly here?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But you're already here, so you don't have to worry about it.
I just go up the street at the Ledger.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Ledger's a cool spot to hang out and work. And, it's kind of like, if WeWork and a library had a baby, it would be the Ledger.
Yeah.
So it's a
really
great place to go and create and do some interesting things.
Specifically, the floor that we're on in the Ledger, the 5th floor, is called the arcade space.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially like a co-working space within a co-working space, because the Ledger itself is a co-working space, but arcade is specifically for like those founders and like that startup ecosystem. So I just love that they kind of have that space within a space so that you can have a great meeting of the minds with like-minded people that are trying to grow their businesses just like you are.
Sure. What do you feel like is going to be one of your biggest takeaways from this experience, more so than anything else? Maybe something beyond, because again, you are seasoned. I mean, you were at Walmart, you've got the t-shirt, right?
Yeah,
so for you, what is going to be one of your larger takeaways? Maybe something that you didn't think about 3 months ago when you got into the program that you're like, man, this is really valuable for me.
I think overwhelmingly realizing that I haven't even scraped the surface of the capabilities of AI.
Yeah.
So in this specific cohort, while it's largely kind of retail based, only 2 of us are product based businesses. The rest are leveraging AI to create very innovative solutions for retailers to better reach their customers by way of either supply chain or marketing, reverse logistics, all of that. So a lot of the solutions that they've been able to create, I'm like, oh, I'm not thinking big enough, like at all.
Yeah.
And for me, I have undiagnosed ADHD. So I have to be really careful or else we're going to have like flying wrapping paper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I have to like figure out what actually makes sense. But there's a much greater world in terms of capabilities outside of having Claude, schedule a meeting on your calendar.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's just so much more. So now that I'm better understanding the ways that AI can just make you smarter and really provide true solutions that, people are willing to pay millions of dollars for, we got to think about what does that mean for us?
Yeah. No. And I always try to help people. I know there is a lot of fear and trepidation around AI and society in general.
Yeah, for sure.
When I think about AI, I always think about, I grew up around it, and I'm going to date myself now. I grew up around the $6 Million Man. So Major Steve Austin, when he had his crash and they rebuilt him, they built him stronger and faster.
Yeah.
He was faster. He had the bionic arm. I mean, I used to have the little, figurine and everything for that. But I think about that. And in the same vein that I think about AI, it's like, it's not so much that AI makes you smarter, but it does enhance a lot of the things that you do. And you don't want to be robbed of your ability to critically think or to write or to ideate over what you want to do. And I'm not suggesting that at all, but it is a great tool to use or to add to your tool belt. And it does make you stronger.
Yeah. It's
as far as that's concerned. So and
just like Excel being a tool, a calculator being a tool.
Yeah. And we use those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to have an original thought.
Yes.
Like if you want to be innovative, you have to have an original thought, and then it can help you, put some structure around it.
Sure.
But I love to challenge it, play devil's advocate, or have it, critically analyze my thoughts, and then we go back and forth, like things like that. But you have to still be original.
Yeah. I love that. So, and in that vein of being original, one of the things that I think about Black Paper Party is really built around a specific community and a specific kind of joy. As you think about scaling, which we've talked a little bit about, more products, more distribution, more visibility, all things that are necessary to reach the full retail scope of what your capabilities are.
Right.
How do you make sure the brand doesn't lose the thing that made people fall in love with it in the first place?
For us, I think it goes back to the first question that you asked. And when I say that it's truly in our DNA and we do not veer from it.
Yeah.
We have been asked, they're just like, what about, Hanukkah or, things like that. So it's just, we stay to what we know so we can bring the authenticity to life.
Sure.
Cool. I've never celebrated Hanukkah. The closest I've been to Hanukkah is the episode of Rugrats. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where I learned about the dreidels and all of that. But I can't bring that to life in a way that's meaningful because I'm not kin to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it would be very tone deaf, inauthentic, and honestly a slap in the face, I think, to those who actually celebrate, because it's just like, so you really just put this out there to make money because you don't know the first thing about the first thing. So it makes it very, very simple and very easy. That's like the least of our worries in terms of how do we stay true to who we are, because we can't literally be a business if we don't. We stay in that pocket and everything kind of flows from it.
Yeah.
So truly having art that represents the culture that we can actually know and speak to and bring to life has just been critical. And anytime, because we may be pressured a bit, or for instance, we'll send off illustrations to be rendered into products and it'll come back, in a shade that, that's not what we sent over. So we'll course correct from that perspective.
Yeah.
But we've never been pressured by any of our retail partners, really any of our customers. So it hasn't really been a question of changing or not staying true to who we were or are because of any kind of external pressures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's important. And certainly for the founders and entrepreneurs that are listening to this, especially those like you guys that are building brands centered on underrepresented communities.
Yeah.
What's real quickly one thing you wish someone had told you earlier in this journey that would have saved you some time or some pain? Is there anything that you can think of where you might have kind of stepped out of your lane a little bit and you were like, oh, no, I got to come back over here, and you course corrected?
Yeah, I would say yes, but not in the sense of us veering off of our mission and kind of who we are. I would say more so we can be our own worst enemy when we kind of overthink.
Yeah.
And I think analysis paralysis was our biggest problem starting out. Especially, you want to know what's funny is that because we came from retail, we really understood the process and the way things work. So we really understood the process and the way things worked, right? So on one end, that really worked to our advantage. On the other end, it allowed for, I would say, like industry disruptors to completely blow past us, because since they didn't really know the process, they ignored the process.
Yeah.
So they fast tracked because we're making sure we're hitting steps A, B, C, and D. They're going from A to Z because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that really helped. That helped in terms of speed. That helped in terms of kind of flooding the market. And it was just a brand that honestly eclipsed us, right? In terms of how fast she was able to get to market. Now, the problem is if you build on a sandy foundation, it'll fall. So because you skipped from A to Z, you didn't do the building blocks that is, B all the way through. So while she eclipsed us for a solid 3 years, she's non-existent in the market right now outside of one of her sub-brands.
Really?
But nothing had staying power long term. We're still in industry.
Yeah.
Right? But it caused a lot of anxiety for me, I would say maybe about 2-3 years ago, because I'm just like, how is this lady with no background in retail eating our lunch?
Yeah.
Because when I say she wasn't playing any games, you know what I mean? She was a great relationship builder. That's the thing. And she knew how to turn those relationships into real opportunities and quickly. So while she's, whining and dining, we're up all night, building, the process and all of that, and, trying to get a Matson boat from Vietnam to the port. And she was fully kind of like licensed, so she didn't have to worry about a lot of that. So one of the things that I wish we would have did both.
Yeah.
I wish we wouldn't have allowed ourselves to be so bogged down by the process that we were able to move a lot faster, but empowered by how smart we were.
Sure.
So we know how to get from A to Z. We don't have to take forever to get there, though.
Yeah.
So we can smartly build our processes and bring products to market, but we don't have to take the Walmart route, which is, 12 months to bring something to life. We don't have to do that.
So it's kind of like holding two opposing thoughts in your head at the same time, being respectful of the process.
Right.
But at the same time, but just scrappy, just getting out there and
really
hustling.
Gritty.
Yeah.
And not to say that we were up, I'm telling you, we were up all night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we just weren't really doing a lot of, I would say, like the relationship building that would have sped up a lot of things for us.
Well, I mean, all of that makes perfect sense. And I think that it's important for us to be able to really think about the whole process, right? And I think a lot of times people just see the end result and say, oh, Black Paper Party, that's awesome.
Listen,
but you don't see all of the hard
process.
work that goes into it. And you can ignore it at your peril. Or you can,
I'm telling you, at your peril. Ignore it if you want to.
You can observe what goes into it and determine what your next steps need to be for your particular business.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we need to get better at is sharing more of that story and that journey, because a lot of people actually don't know what goes into it, because especially when you're going through really hard times, it's almost shameful to share it, right?
Yeah.
The times where there's more, month than there is money, right? When there's disagreements amongst the founders, when the account walks away from you, when your supplier walks away from you, when the product is just not right, or we just turned in a beautiful trend that we thought was gorgeous and the buyer is just like, yuck. You're like, wait a minute, what? Like, how can you say that? This is my baby. And you actually have to remove yourself from the emotions. The fact that each of us had to go into therapy. You don't just go on social media and shout that from the rooftops.
No.
But if you really want to understand, we did not wake up and end up in these retailers without, like you were saying, cutting our teeth. The teeth were cut, the nose was cut, the cheek was cut, the hands were cut, feet were cut. So it takes a lot. And to think that any founder got to a place of what some may call like excellence or perceived success and not had some crazy times is ignorant at best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great place for us to put a note in here. As I like to say, with all of our conversations, this is a comma, not a period.
For sure.
So
we're going on 3 now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Jasmine, this has been such a good conversation. 3 times on this podcast. It just keeps getting better. That's what happens when you stay in the work and keep building. If anybody wants to reach out or connect with Black Paper Party or with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. So blackpaperparty.com. We have like a contact us, or you can reach out directly at info@Black Paper Party. My personal email is just Jasmine@Black Paper Party. But be sure to follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. You literally just look us up, or LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
You look us up, Black Paper Party. We will be there.
Yeah. And we'll also put a link to Endeavor Heartland as well for anyone that needs that. So that way they can check it out. So, but thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, Black Paper Party is exactly the kind of story this podcast exists to tell. A brand born out of a real need, built by founders who refuse to wait for someone else to fill the gap. And now at a point where the whole region is paying attention, we're rooting for you. If you want to check out Black Paper Party, and you should, head over to blackpaperparty.com. And if you want to learn more about what Endeavor Heartland is doing to support high growth founders across this region, visit us at us.endeavor.org/office/Bentonville. I know that's a long one. I'll put it in the show notes so that you have it. But Endeavor's doing some great things in this region and beyond. And so we certainly want to make sure you have a way to catch up with Janem and Sean and learn more about what they're doing. That is a wrap on this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. If this conversation meant something to you, share it with somebody. Leave us a review. And as always, keep showing up for this community because it shows up for you. I'm Randy Wilburn, and this has been another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.
Searching for local businesses in Northwest Arkansas just got easier. From restaurants to roofers, boutiques to baristas, FindItNWA.com connects you to the best local businesses with just one click. Discover something local, something great. Visit FindItNWA.com today. Find it fast, find it local, FindItNWA.com.